A law enforcement officer destroyed a black man's $250,000 dream car, not realizing the driver held federal credentials that would end his career forever. The crimson sports car gleamed under the afternoon sun as Officer Brad Hollister watched from his cruiser. His jaw clenched. His radio crackled to life with his own voice requesting surveillance assistance. Something about seeing wealth in unexpected hands triggered a familiar rage within him, a pattern that had repeated itself dozens of times before. Behind the wheel sat Marcus Bennett, 38, composed and impeccably dressed. He hadn't violated a single traffic regulation. His documentation was current. His insurance is active. Yet none of these facts would matter in the confrontation ahead. The deputy's patrol vehicle followed for nearly 4 miles before activating emergency lights. Marcus noticed immediately, checking his gauges. Speed appropriate. Lane position correct. Everything is legal. Still, those flashing colors filled his mirror with their accusatory glow. He guided the expensive vehicle onto the shoulder with practiced caution. Every movement is deliberate. Hands positioned where cameras could see them. This wasn't his first encounter with authority while driving something valuable. Hollister approached with unmistakable hostility radiating from his posture. His partner remained near their vehicle, uncomfortable and silent. The deputy's opening words dripped with contempt rather than professional courtesy. "Identification and ownership papers," he demanded without preamble. Marcus responded with careful politeness, announcing each action before executing it. Wallet extraction. Document retrieval. Every motion is transparent and slow. The officer examined the license with obvious suspicion. His gaze moved across the leather interior, the carbon fiber details, and the premium craftsmanship. Resentment twisted his features into something ugly. "Long distance from your registered address," Hollister observed with venom. Marcus explained he was traveling to visit family. The deputy's response was to expectorate onto the pristine paintwork. Saliva trailed down the glossy surface like acid. $250,000, and someone like you behind the wheel," the officer said with theatrical disbelief. The command to exit came next, sharp and aggressive. Marcus questioned the legal basis for detention. That question earned him violence. The door was wrenched open forcefully. Hands grabbed his collar. His body was yanked from the driver's seat and slammed against hot metal. Accusations poured out. Thief, criminal, dealer, animal. Each word was chosen to dehumanize and degrade. Then Hollister produced his keys and dragged them deliberately across the entire passenger side. Metal screaming against metal, paint peeling down to bare aluminum. Witnesses gathered. A pickup truck slowed, its driver shouting encouragement to the officer. A teenager recorded a video while laughing. Nobody intervened. Nobody questioned the brutality unfolding before them. Marcus remained motionless against the hood, tears forming despite his composure. But the people surrounding this scene had miscalculated catastrophically. They had no comprehension of who they were abusing. 6 hours earlier, dawn had broken over a modest residence in DeKalb County, Georgia. Marcus Bennett stood before his mirror, fastening buttons on a crisp shirt. Precision mattered to someone who'd spent decades proving his worth in spaces designed to exclude him. 14 years with federal law enforcement. Specialized investigator in governmental corruption. Personally responsible for imprisoning 17 corrupt politicians and 11 dishonest officers. Today wasn't about work, though. Sundays belonged to his mother. On his dresser rested a photograph, himself in military uniform beside an older man with weathered hands and proud eyes. His father. Next to it sat a folded flag in its triangular case, the kind presented at funerals while bagpipes play mournfully. His father had labored for 40 years delivering mail. 6 days a week, through every weather condition. No vacations, no luxuries, no complaints. But every Sunday after services, father and son would walk downtown past the exotic car showroom. The older man would press his palm against the glass, staring at the crimson models. "Someday, Marcus," he'd whisper with longing. Someday never arrived. Cancer claimed him 24 months ago. Pancreatic. Stage 4 at discovery. 3 months from diagnosis to burial. His final letter, scrawled on yellow paper with trembling hands, contained 5 words that changed everything. Purchase that red one, son. So Marcus did. He located a certified pre-owned Italian sports car at a Buckhead dealership. Rosso Corsa Red, the exact shade his father had admired through showroom windows. 8,000 miles on the odometer. The previous owner had upgraded to something newer. The price was $198,000. Marcus paid entirely in cash. Every dollar from his savings. Every dollar from his father's life insurance. Every penny accumulated over 15 years. $200,000 of love, loss, and promise fulfilled. The car occupied his garage like sacred art. Marcus touched the hood each morning before departing for work. Not from materialism or vanity, but because every contact with that machine connected him to his father's memory. The passenger seat remained untouched, preserved for a journey that would never happen. Today, he was driving to Millbrook County to visit his mother. A simple Sunday trip. Nothing complicated, no federal business, no undercover operations. He opened the safe in his closet. Inside lay his service weapon, his federal identification, and ammunition. He reached for the credentials, then hesitated. This was his day off. Just a family visit. He didn't need to carry them. He closed the safe. That decision would cost him $200,000. 20 minutes later, Marcus cruised down the interstate with windows partially open, warm air flowing through the cabin. His phone connected via speaker, his mother's voice filling the space with maternal warnings. "Don't speed in that thing," she cautioned. "I don't care what it costs. Citations are citations." Marcus laughed. "Mama, I work in law enforcement. I follow regulations." "Sure you do. That's what your father claimed right before tickets. I'll arrive by 2 o'clock. Dinner remains at 6. Always at 6. Don't be tardy." He crossed the county boundary 15 minutes later. A green sign welcomed him to Millbrook County. Population 48,000. A family community. What the sign omitted, Millbrook County's median household income was $92,000. Its black population was 11%. And during the past 5 years, the Millbrook County Sheriff's Department had accumulated 52 formal complaints regarding racial profiling. Every single one had been dismissed. Marcus stopped at a gas station just inside the county line. As he exited the vehicle, he noticed a white patrol car idling in the lot's corner. The officer inside was watching him. Not the car. Him. Marcus had been watched his entire life. He didn't react. What he didn't observe was Officer Brad Hollister activating his radio. Dispatch, running registration on a red exotic vehicle. DeKalb plates. Black male driver, requesting backup for surveillance. Hollister was 34 years old and had been on patrol for 8 years. During that time, he'd accumulated 8 formal complaints. Excessive force. Racial slurs during stops. Unlawful searches. Intimidation. Every complaint had been dismissed. His supervisors described him as thorough. His colleagues called him effective. Black residents of Millbrook County had different names for him. Marcus finished fueling, replaced the nozzle, and departed. In his mirror, he observed the patrol car easing from the station lot. Following him, his hands shifted to the proper steering position. His breathing remained steady. His heart rate stayed calm. He had no idea what was approaching. But then again, neither did Officer Brad Hollister. The patrol car followed Marcus for exactly 3.7 miles before activating its lights. Blue and red strobes filled the mirror. Marcus checked his speedometer. 53 miles per hour in a 55 zone. He hadn't been speeding. His tags were current. His registration was valid. His insurance was paid. None of that mattered. Marcus signaled immediately and pulled onto the shoulder, stopping on an empty 2-lane road bordered by Georgia pines. He'd done this before. Every black man in America had done this before. He knew the rules. Hands are visible constantly. Movements are slow and deliberate. Voice calm and respectful. Announce every action before executing it. Don't argue. Don't resist. Don't provide any excuse. Survive the encounter. Address the injustice later. Officer Hollister approached the driver's window with the swagger of someone who had never faced consequences. His partner, Deputy Kyle Messner, stayed near the patrol car, shifting his weight uncomfortably. License and registration. Hollister's voice was flat and bored. Keep your hands visible. Good afternoon, officer. Marcus kept his tone neutral. Professional. My license is in my wallet. Back left pocket. My registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them slowly. Is that acceptable? He narrated every movement. That was federal training. Eliminate ambiguity. Remove excuses. Create a clear record. Hollister examined the license. His eyes moved to the vehicle's interior, the leather seats, the carbon fiber trim, and the digital dashboard costing more than his annual salary. Then back to Marcus. DeKalb. He said the word like it tasted foul. You're a long way from home, aren't you? I'm visiting my mother in Millbrook, officer. Nice car for someone from DeKalb. Hollister leaned into the window close enough that Marcus could smell coffee on his breath. Where'd you get the money for something like this? I purchased it legally. Is there a problem with my driving, officer? That's when Hollister spat on the hood. The saliva landed on the red paint and began sliding down toward the windshield. Marcus watched it trail across the metal like a slug's path. $200,000, Hollister said, shaking his head in theatrical disbelief. And a black boy driving it. He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Get your ass out of the car now. Officer, I have the right to know why I'm being detained. Did I say you could talk? Hollister yanked the door open with enough force to strain the hinges. He grabbed Marcus by the collar of his dress shirt, the shirt he'd ironed so carefully that morning, and dragged him out of the vehicle. Marcus's shoulder hit the door frame. His knee scraped the running board. Hollister slammed him face first against the hood. The metal was hot from the Georgia sun. It burned through Marcus's shirt. You people are all the same. Hollister's voice dripped with contempt. Thieves, drug dealers, pimps, animals. Where'd you get this car? You stole it? You sell drugs for it? You pimp out your sister? Marcus said nothing, his cheek pressed against the burning hood, his hands staying flat beside his head. Answer me. Hollister kicked Marcus's legs apart with his boot. A monkey in a suit doesn't belong in a car like this. So where'd the money come from? I'm a federal employee. Marcus's voice remained steady, unnervingly steady. I saved for 15 years and purchased this vehicle legally. Hollister burst out laughing. Federal employee? What? Do you deliver mail? You work at the post office like your daddy probably did? Marcus's jaw tightened. The officer had no idea how close that comment came. My name is Marcus Bennett, badge number 7714. Hollister's laughter stopped. His eyes narrowed. Badge number? What are you, a mall cop? Security guard at the welfare office? He turned to his partner. You hear that, Messner? This boy thinks he's somebody important. Deputy Messner looked at the ground. He said nothing. 50 yards down the road, a silver sedan pulled onto the shoulder. Behind the wheel sat Linda Morrison, a 67-year-old retired school teacher who had taught third grade in Millbrook for 34 years. She was driving home from the grocery store with a trunk full of supplies for her church's food pantry. What she saw through her windshield made her stop. A black man pinned against a red sports car. A white officer was standing over him. Something about the scene felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Linda Morrison reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and pressed record. Back at the sports car, Hollister wasn't finished. I'm going to search this vehicle, he announced. Officer, I do not consent to a search. Marcus's voice was calm but clear. I do not consent. Am I being detained? What is the probable cause for this stop? Hollister ignored him. He walked around to the driver's side and began tearing through the interior. The glove compartment was emptied onto the passenger seat. Registration, insurance card, and owner's manual scattered like trash. The center console was rifled through. A phone charger, sunglasses, and a pack of gum are thrown onto the floor. He pulled the custom floor mats out and threw them onto the asphalt. Then he pulled out a pocket knife. "Gotta check for hidden compartments," he said to no one in particular. "Drug dealers like to hide their stash in the seats." He plunged the blade into the driver's seat and dragged it downward. The custom Italian leather split open like flesh. He stabbed again and again. 4 long gashes in the seat that Marcus's father had never gotten to sit in. Marcus closed his eyes and breathed. He had faced cartel enforcers in interrogation rooms. He had talked down armed hostage-takers in bank lobbies. He had sat across from serial killers without flinching. But watching this stranger destroy his father's dream was different. Hollister emerged from the car empty-handed, sweating and frustrated. He'd searched everything and found nothing because there was nothing to find. But he wasn't done. He walked around the vehicle slowly, examining it with exaggerated suspicion. His frustration was building. He'd expected to find something. Drugs, cash, guns, or something that would justify what he was about to do. He found nothing but the smell of new leather and the ghost of an old man's dream. Hollister stopped at the passenger side. He pulled out his keys, and slowly, deliberately, he dragged them along the entire length of the car from headlight to taillight. A deep, jagged scratch that cut through the red paint down to bare metal. The sound was like a scream. He walked back to the driver's side and kicked the door twice with his boot. The aluminum panel crumpled inward like tinfoil. He swung his heavy flashlight at the side mirror. It exploded into fragments that scattered across the asphalt like broken teeth. He climbed onto the hood and stomped once, twice, 3 times. Boot prints dented into the sculpted metal. "Looks like you've got some prior damage here," Hollister said with a grin. "Shame about that. Maybe next time don't drive something you can't afford." Through all of it, Marcus didn't move, didn't shout, and didn't resist, but a single tear tracked down his cheek. Hollister grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, I have a combative suspect resisting a lawful traffic stop, requesting immediate backup." "Officer," Marcus's voice cut through the air. "I have not resisted. I have not moved. I have complied with every instruction. Your body camera is recording everything." Hollister's grin widened. "Body cam? Yeah, funny thing about that. Had a malfunction. The battery died about 10 minutes ago." He shrugged. "Technology, right? Can't trust it." He walked toward Marcus, grabbed him by the collar, and threw him to the ground. Marcus went limp, a trained response. "Don't resist. Don't give them an excuse." "Stop resisting!" Hollister shouted for the benefit of any potential witnesses. But Marcus wasn't resisting. He was lying face down on hot asphalt with his hands behind his back. Linda Morrison stepped out of her sedan, phone still recording. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was strong. "I'm filming this. This man did nothing wrong. I saw everything." Hollister glanced at her. For half a second, something flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. He slapped handcuffs onto Marcus's wrists. "You're under arrest. Resisting arrest. Obstruction of justice. Felony evasion." "I did not evade." Marcus's cheek pressed into the asphalt. Tiny rocks bit into his skin. "I did not obstruct. I did not resist." Hollister hauled him up and shoved him toward the patrol car. As Marcus passed the sports car, he looked at what remained of his father's dream. The scratch runs the entire length of the car. The crumpled door, the shattered mirror, the boot prints on the hood. The slashed seats are visible through the open door. Then Hollister did something that would define the rest of his life. He put Marcus in the back of the patrol car and slammed the door. He walked back to his own cruiser, climbed in, started the engine, put it in reverse, and floored the accelerator. The patrol car rocketed backward and slammed into the front of the sports car with a sickening crunch. The hood crumpled like paper. The grille exploded into 1,000 pieces. Both headlights shattered. The radiator ruptured, spilling green fluid across the asphalt like blood. $200,000 of love and grief, destroyed in 3 seconds. Through the cruiser's rear window, Marcus watched in silence. Hollister picked up his radio. His voice was casual, bored even. Dispatch, minor vehicle contact during the arrest. The suspect's vehicle rolled forward into my cruiser. No injuries. Send a tow truck. Linda Morrison stood frozen on the shoulder, her phone capturing every second. The sports car, Marcus's father's dream, his life savings, and his promise kept, sat crumpled and smoking on the side of the road. Total damage, $127,000. Insurance assessment, total loss. Salvage value is $8,200. Marcus Bennett said nothing. He didn't need to. He was already building his case. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow across the booking area where Marcus Bennett stood in handcuffs, waiting to be processed. Photographed. Fingerprinted. Cataloged like every other suspect who'd passed through those doors. The booking officer was a heavy-set woman in her 50s who looked like she'd seen everything and been impressed by nothing. She typed without looking up. Full name: Marcus James Bennett. Date of birth: March 15, 1987. Address: 347 Maple Street, DeKalb, Georgia. Occupation. Marcus paused just for a moment. Federal government. The booking officer's fingers stopped moving. She looked up at him, really looked. Something flickered across her face. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition of something that didn't quite fit. Then she shrugged, typed it in, and moved on. Another clue ignored. Another warning missed. They put Marcus in a holding cell. Gray concrete walls, a metal bench, and a stainless steel toilet without a seat. The air smelled like disinfectant and fear. Marcus sat down, folded his hands, and breathed. Any other man in his position would have demanded his phone call immediately, would have shouted about his rights, and would have threatened lawsuits and investigations and career-ending consequences. Marcus did none of those things. He understood something that most people didn't. Timing was everything. If he revealed his identity now, the cover-up would begin within minutes. Documents would be shredded. Stories would be coordinated. Body camera footage would suffer permanent technical failures. Computer files would be accidentally deleted. He needed them to commit to their lies first. Needed the false reports filed. Needed the fabricated evidence documented. Needed every corrupt act locked into the official record before anyone knew who they were dealing with. So he sat and waited and let them think they'd won. His one phone call went to his mother. "Mama, I'm going to be late." Something came up. "Marcus." Her voice was sharp with worry. "What's wrong? Where are you?" "I heard sirens earlier." "I'm fine, Mama, I promise. Just a misunderstanding. I'll explain everything tomorrow." "Marcus James Bennett, you tell me right now what's—" "I love you, Mama. I'll call you tomorrow." He hung up. Let them think he was broken. Let them believe they'd crushed another nobody. Let them get comfortable in their lies. Meanwhile, at his desk in the deputy's bullpen, Officer Brad Hollister was typing his incident report with a satisfied smile. His fingers moved across the keyboard with the confidence of a man who had never faced consequences. The suspect exhibited erratic behavior upon initial contact, failed to comply with lawful orders, made furtive movements toward his waistband, creating officer safety concerns. The suspect was removed from the vehicle and secured without incident. The vehicle sustained minor damage when the suspect's car rolled forward during the arrest, making contact with the patrol unit. The body camera experienced a technical failure at approximately 14:32 and was non-functional during the encounter. 7 lies in one paragraph filed as official truth. Sergeant Patricia Vance reviewed the report in her office. She'd supervised Hollister for 6 years. She'd signed off on every complaint dismissal, every use of force report, and every accidental vehicle damage incident. She scanned the document and initialed the bottom. "Good work, Hollister. The district attorney will probably plead this down to a misdemeanor, but at least we got another drug dealer off the road." Hollister grinned. "Just doing my job, Sergeant." Across town, in a modest living room decorated with family photos and church bulletins, Linda Morrison sat on her couch with shaking hands. She'd watched her video 17 times. Each viewing made her angrier. The officer's cruiser was backing up at full speed. The sickening crunch of metal. The black man in handcuffs who never raised his voice, never struggled, and never did anything except exist in the wrong car in the wrong county with the wrong skin color. She picked up her phone and made 3 calls. First, the Millbrook County chapter of the NAACP. Second, the tip line at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Third, she opened Facebook and uploaded the video with a simple caption. "The Millbrook Police Department destroys an innocent man's car. They arrested him for nothing. I saw everything. I have proof." Within 2 hours, the video had 50,000 views. Within 4 hours, 500,000. By sunset, it had crossed 2 million. Local news vans surrounded the sheriff's station like vultures circling a carcass. Reporters shouted questions at anyone in uniform. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust toward deputies who had no comment. By midnight, the video had gone national. A viral video shows a Georgia deputy deliberately ramming a $200,000 sports car during a traffic stop. We are aware of the video circulating on social media and stand firmly behind our deputy's professionalism. The vehicle contact shown in the video was accidental and occurred when the suspect's vehicle rolled forward during the arrest. The department will conduct a routine review of the incident. Accidental. The internet didn't buy it. Comments poured in by the thousands, angry, outraged, and demanding justice. The video was shared, reshared, downloaded, and re-uploaded across every platform. But the real storm was brewing somewhere else entirely. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Field Office, 9th floor. A young intelligence analyst named Keisha Williams was scrolling through her news feed during a coffee break when she stopped cold. She knew that face. The booking photo on her screen belonged to a man she'd worked with 3 years ago on a public corruption case. A man who had helped take down a county commissioner and 2 city councilmen in a bribery scheme. "Run this name," she said to the analyst at the next desk. "Marcus Bennett, DeKalb address. Run it now." The database search took 4 seconds. Keisha Williams went pale. Oh my God. 15 minutes later, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jerome Mitchell was on the phone. His voice was the temperature of liquid nitrogen. "You're telling me that one of my agents, a 14-year veteran of the Public Corruption Unit, was arrested by some county deputy for resisting arrest, and that his personal vehicle, worth $200,000, was totaled by that same deputy, and nobody thought to call us for—" He checked his watch. 7 hours. He slammed a folder onto his desk hard enough to make his coffee cup jump. "Get me Internal Affairs, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Millbrook County. Get me the United States Attorney's Office. Get me everything you can find on Officer Brad Hollister. Every complaint, every incident report, every performance review." He paused and took a breath. "We're going to handle this by the book." Another pause, longer this time. "And then we're going to handle it my way." The next morning arrived gray and humid. The Georgia sky was heavy with clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. Inside the Millbrook County Sheriff's Station, life continued as if nothing had changed. Coffee brewed, phones rang, deputies complained about paperwork, and they argued about football. Brad Hollister arrived 20 minutes late. Coffee in one hand, donut in the other, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. He'd watched the news coverage the night before, seen the outrage online, and he'd laughed at all of it. What were they going to do? He was a cop. He had the union. He had Sergeant Vance. And he had 8 years of getting away with everything. "Did you see my arrest yesterday?" He announced it to a cluster of deputies near the vending machines. "Guy thought he was somebody important driving that sports car. Turns out he's just another thug. The car looked like garbage when I was done with it. A few deputies laughed. Others scrolled their phones nervously, watching the viral video rack up another 1,000,000 views. None of them noticed the 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans pulling into the parking lot. Government plates, tinted windows, and the kind of vehicles that only showed up when something very, very bad was about to happen. 8 agents stepped out in dark suits and darker expressions. They moved across the parking lot in formation like soldiers advancing on enemy territory. Leading them was Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jerome Mitchell, 55 years old, 6'3", and built like a linebacker who'd traded the field for federal law enforcement. His face looked like it had been carved from granite, and his eyes held all the warmth of a January morning in Minnesota. He pushed through the front doors and approached the reception desk. The deputy behind the counter looked up, confused. Mitchell didn't wait for a greeting. He held up his credentials. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jerome Mitchell, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. I'm here regarding the arrest of Marcus Bennett. I need to speak with your sheriff, your Internal Affairs Division, and the arresting officer immediately. The word Federal Bureau of Investigation moved through the station like an electric shock. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to the lips. Deputies who had been laughing moments earlier suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. Someone ran to get Sheriff Ronald Briggs. The sheriff emerged from his office 30 seconds later, still buttoning his shirt, his face the color of sour milk. He was 58 years old, a political appointee with connections to the county commission, and had no real law enforcement experience beyond managing budgets and attending fundraisers. Federal Bureau of Investigation. His voice cracked. What's this about? Conference room now. Bring everyone involved in yesterday's arrest. 5 minutes later, the key players were assembled around a table that suddenly felt much too small. Sheriff Briggs sat at one end, sweating through his shirt. Sergeant Patricia Vance sat beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight. Brad Hollister slouched in his chair, trying to project the same confidence he'd felt that morning. His leg bounced nervously beneath the table, betraying him. Deputy Kyle Messner stood in the corner, trying to make himself invisible. Assistant Special Agent in Charge. Mitchell stood at the opposite end of the table. He did not sit. He did not smile. He did not hurry. Slowly, deliberately, he placed a leather credential case on the table. He opened it. Gold federal badge, official photograph. The face of the man Hollister had beaten, humiliated, and arrested the day before. Special Agent Marcus James Bennett, Public Corruption Unit, 14 years of federal service, recipient of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Medal for Meritorious Achievement. 3 letters of commendation, 0 disciplinary actions. Silence. The kind of silence that sounds like a career ending. Yesterday, Mitchell continued, his voice calm and precise, your deputy arrested a 14-year veteran federal agent. He charged him with resisting arrest, obstruction, and felony evasion. He paused. None of those events occurred. He slid a photograph across the table. The sports car, what remained of it. The front end was crushed, the side was gouged to bare metal, the mirrors were shattered, and the hood was caved in with boot prints. Your deputy also destroyed Agent Bennett's personal vehicle. $200,000. Total loss. Another photograph. The key scratches run the length of the car. He did this deliberately with witnesses present on camera. He tapped his phone. Linda Morrison's video played on the screen. The cruiser was accelerating backward, the impact, the crunch of metal that sounded like bones breaking. Your deputy then filed an incident report claiming Mitchell pulled out a document and read from it. The vehicle sustained minor damage when the suspect's car rolled forward during the arrest. Would anyone in this room like to explain to me how a parked car rolls forward into a reversing police cruiser? Hollister's face had gone white. His mouth opened, closed, and opened again. I didn't know. His voice was barely a whisper. He didn't tell me I didn't. How was I supposed to? He told you he was a federal employee. Mitchell's voice hardened. He gave you his badge number. You laughed and called him a mall cop. Then you keyed his car, kicked in his door, shattered his mirror, stomped on his hood, and rammed it with your cruiser while he watched from the back of your patrol vehicle. He turned to Sergeant Vance. And you, Sergeant, you signed off on this report. A report that claims Agent Bennett reached toward his waistband. He held up the document. There is no moment in any footage, body camera, witness video, or dash cam that supports this claim. You also approved a report describing $127,000 in deliberate destruction as minor vehicle contact. Vance's arms uncrossed. Her confident posture crumbled. I relied on my deputy's account. You endorsed a false federal document. You facilitated a cover-up. That makes you complicit in civil rights violations. Mitchell looked at Deputy Messner, still trying to disappear into the corner. And you, Deputy Messner, you were present for the entire encounter. You watched your partner assault a federal agent, destroy his property, and file a false report, and you said nothing. Did nothing. Messner stared at the floor. His hands trembled. Here's what we're looking at, Mitchell's voice filled the room. Civil rights violation under 18 United States Code Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, false statements to federal investigators, obstruction of justice, destruction of property, evidence tampering, and, depending on how many people in this room knew what was happening and chose to remain silent, conspiracy. He let that word hang in the air like a guillotine blade. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is assuming jurisdiction over this investigation. Your cooperation will be documented. Your obstruction will be prosecuted. You have the right to legal counsel. I suggest you exercise it. He picked up the credential case and closed it. All charges against Agent Bennett were dropped 45 minutes ago. His arrest has been expunged from every database. This meeting is being recorded. Federal agents will begin collecting evidence within the hour. He walked toward the door, paused. One more thing. Agent Bennett's specialty, the thing he spent 14 years doing, is investigating corrupt public officials, dirty cops, crooked politicians, and people who abuse their power. He looked directly at Hollister. You picked the wrong man. In the holding area, a cell door opened with a metallic clang. Marcus Bennett stood. A federal agent handed him his personal effects, wallet, phone, and keys to a car that no longer existed. He walked through the station lobby in silence. Deputies stared. Some looked away in shame. Others pretended to be busy with paperwork. Hollister, being escorted to an interview room, passed within 3 feet of him. Their eyes met. Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mitchell waited by one of the Suburbans. You could have called us yesterday, Mitchell said. One phone call and we would have had 20 agents here within the hour. Marcus nodded slowly. If I had, they would have started destroying evidence before you arrived. Shredding documents, aligning stories, and making sure the body camera footage was permanently lost. So, you let them think they'd won. I let them commit to their lies, file their false reports, and document their cover-up. I needed the evidence locked in before anyone knew who I was. Mitchell studied him for a long moment. You built the case against yourself. Marcus's voice was quiet. No, I built the case against them. He walked to the impound lot. The sports car sat alone in a corner, cordoned off with yellow tape. The front end was caved in. The hood buckled. The passenger side looked like it had been attacked with a chainsaw. Fluids stained the concrete beneath. Marcus placed his hand on the crushed roof and closed his eyes. His father had never sat in this car, never felt the engine rumble, never smelled the leather interior, never experienced the dream he'd carried for 40 years. And now it was destroyed. Because a man with a badge had looked at Marcus and seen only a color, only a stereotype, only someone who didn't deserve what he had. $200,000. Twisted metal, shattered glass, a promise kept, and a promise broken at the same time. Marcus stood there for a long time. Then he walked away. There was work to do. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Civil Rights Division opened a formal investigation within 48 hours of the incident. 16 agents were assigned to the case, more than most murder investigations received. Evidence technicians descended on Millbrook County like locusts, collecting documents, cloning hard drives, and cataloging every piece of equipment Hollister had touched in the past 5 years. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation wasn't working alone. Under intense federal pressure, Millbrook County was forced to launch its own internal affairs probe. For the first time in the department's 73-year history, that investigation would be conducted under federal supervision. Lieutenant Denise Howard was assigned to lead the county's internal review. 52 years old, 30 years in law enforcement, and one of only 3 black officers above the rank of sergeant in the entire department, she had built her career by being twice as good as everyone else in rooms that didn't want her there. She understood exactly what was at stake. The body camera evidence came first. Hollister had claimed his camera malfunctioned. Battery failure, a technical glitch, the kind of random equipment problem that could happen to anyone. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Digital Evidence Laboratory told a different story. The camera was manually powered down at 14:32. The forensic analyst testified. 4 minutes before the subject vehicle was damaged. It was powered back on at 14:51, 19 minutes late, after the suspect was already in custody and the vehicle was destroyed. The camera hadn't malfunctioned. It had been deliberately disabled. But Hollister didn't know about Linda Morrison. He didn't know her phone had captured everything his camera had conveniently missed. The ramming, the grin on his face, the casual radio call reporting minor vehicle contact. All of it in high definition with audio. Next came the pattern analysis. Federal Bureau of Investigation analysts pulled 8 years of Hollister's traffic stop records. Every interaction, every arrest, every incident report. They cross-referenced demographics, vehicle values, outcomes, and complaints. What they found was damning. 37 traffic stops involving black drivers in high-value vehicles. Mercedes, BMWs, Lexuses, and Teslas. In every single case, Hollister had cited suspicious behavior or erratic driving as probable cause for the stop. In only 2 of those 37 stops was an actual citation issued. In 0 cases was any contraband found. His body camera had malfunctioned during 11 of those stops. And in 7 cases, 7 separate incidents over 8 years, the vehicles had sustained what Hollister's reports described as incidental damage during the encounter. Scratches on paint, dented doors, cracked windows, and broken mirrors were all ruled accidental and all signed off by Sergeant Patricia Vance. Marcus Bennett wasn't Hollister's first victim. He was 38th. The only difference was that Marcus Bennett had the power to fight back. Deputy Kyle Messner's interview took place in a small room with gray walls, a metal table, and a recording device. Lieutenant Denise Howard sat across from him. She didn't rush, didn't pressure, and just waited. Messner's leg bounced and his hands twisted together. He looked everywhere except at her eyes. "You were there the entire time," Howard said finally. "You watched him pull Mr. Bennett from his vehicle. You watched him key the car, kick the door, and shatter the mirror. You watched him reverse his cruiser into the front end at full speed." She paused. "And you said nothing, did nothing. Why?" Messner's voice cracked. I wanted to. I knew it was wrong, but Hollister, everyone knows you don't cross him. Vance protects him. The union protects him. If I had said something, I'd have been writing parking tickets in the worst precinct in the county for the rest of my career. So, you chose your career over that man's rights. I have a family, kids, and a mortgage. His voice broke. I was scared. Howard leaned forward. "Deputy Messner, you have a choice right now. Cooperate fully. Tell us everything you saw, everything you heard, and everything you know, and we can discuss your future in law enforcement. Stay silent, and you'll be included in the obstruction charges. Conspiracy. Accessory after the fact." Long silence. Messner's hands stopped twisting. "I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything." He took a breath. He planned it before we even pulled the guy over. Premeditation on the record, admissible in federal court. Messner kept talking. He does this all the time. Every time he sees a black guy in a nice car, it's the same thing. Drug dealer, pimp, stolen. He's got this hatred, like it personally offends him when they have something nice. And no one's ever reported him? People have lots of complaints, but the complaints never go anywhere. Vance signs off on everything. The sheriff doesn't want the headache. The union fights every investigation. He looked up and met Howard's eyes. Everyone knows. No one does anything. We just let it happen. Sergeant Patricia Vance's interview was different. She arrived with a union lawyer and a chip on her shoulder the size of Millbrook County. Sat down with her arms crossed and her jaw set. She didn't stay confident for long. "Sergeant Vance, you've supervised Deputy Hollister for 6 years. In that time, he accumulated 8 formal complaints. Excessive force, racial slurs, unlawful searches, and 7 incidents of accidental vehicle damage during traffic stops. You signed off on every dismissal, every use of force report, and every incident. I followed departmental procedures. You also wrote in a performance evaluation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation agent pulled out a document. Deputy Hollister demonstrates exemplary dedication to proactive policing. Can you explain what proactive policing means when it involves deliberately destroying a citizen's $200,000 vehicle?" Vance's lawyer whispered in her ear. "I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment rights." "That's your choice, but your signature is on 7 false reports documenting vehicle damage as accidental. You either knew what Hollister was doing and approved it, or you were negligent to the point of criminal complicity." The agent leaned forward. "Either way, Sergeant, your career in law enforcement is over. The only question is whether you'll spend the next few years in a federal prison." Sheriff Ronald Briggs wasn't formally interviewed. He was too busy trying to save his political career. His meeting with county legal counsel lasted 4 hours. "Sheriff, the situation is worse than we initially assessed. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has jurisdiction because the victim is a federal agent. We're looking at civil rights violations, destruction of federal property, obstruction, and conspiracy. If the feds press charges and we don't cooperate, we're facing a consent decree, federal oversight of our entire department for years, maybe a decade. What do? Get ahead of it. Terminate Hollister immediately. Suspend Vance. Announce reforms before they're mandated. Make it look like we're taking action voluntarily instead of having it forced on us. And if we don't?" The lawyer sighed. "Then Millbrook County becomes a national symbol of police corruption. Property values drop, tax revenue falls, businesses relocate, and you personally become the face of everything that went wrong." Briggs fired Hollister that afternoon. Linda Morrison gave her testimony in a formal conference room at the Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters in Atlanta. She wore her Sunday best, a navy blue dress with a pearl brooch, and sat with her hands folded on the table. Her voice was steady, but tears streamed down her face. "I've lived in Millbrook for 30 years and taught 3rd grade for 34 years. I raised my children there and buried my husband there. I always believed our police officers were good people doing hard jobs." She paused and wiped her eyes. "But what I saw that day, I can't unsee it. That man did nothing wrong. Nothing. He was polite and respectful. He followed every instruction. And that officer, he enjoyed hurting him. You could see it in his face. He was smiling when he scratched that car and laughing when he broke the mirror. And when he backed his cruiser into it, that wasn't an accident. He looked right at what he was doing, and he floored it." She pulled out a tissue and dabbed her eyes. "I'm 67 years old. I've never made a complaint about anything in my life. But I know what I saw. And when I saw it, I knew I had to do something. Even if I was scared, even if it cost me friends, even if it made my life harder." She looked directly at the camera. Somebody had to be a witness. Somebody had to tell the truth. Marcus Bennett gave his formal statement that same day in the same building in a different room. I complied with every instruction. I identified myself as a federal employee. I gave my badge number. I asked for probable cause 4 times. I did not resist. I did not obstruct. I did not evade. His voice was calm and measured, the voice of a man who had testified in dozens of federal cases. And he destroyed my car anyway. Not because I did anything wrong, not because he had any evidence of any crime, but because he looked at me and saw something that offended him. A black man with something nice. A black man who didn't look like he was supposed to look. A black man who didn't belong. He paused. That car was my father's dream. My father worked for 40 years as a postal worker, never took a vacation, never bought himself anything. Marcus's voice caught just for a moment. He died 2 years ago. His last wish was for me to buy that car, so I did. Every dollar I'd saved for 15 years, every dollar of his life insurance, I bought it, so he could finally have his dream, even if he wasn't here to see it. He straightened. And Brad Hollister destroyed it in 15 minutes because I'm black. Because he thought no one would believe me. Because he thought he could get away with it like he'd gotten away with it 37 times before. His eyes met the camera. He was wrong. The investigation continued for 3 months. The media attention never wavered. Cable news discussed the case nightly. Social media raged. Millbrook County became synonymous with everything wrong with American policing. And Marcus Bennett said nothing publicly. No interviews, no press conferences, no statements. He let the evidence speak. But justice came with a price. His face was everywhere. Every news broadcast, every social media feed, every discussion about police reform and racial profiling. The undercover career he'd spent 14 years building was effectively over. His ability to work on covert operations, his greatest skill, his primary value to the Bureau, was gone. And the sports car was gone, too. Insurance declared it a total loss. Salvage value is $8,200. A $200,000 car was reduced to scrap metal. Some losses can't be recovered. Some costs can't be reimbursed. Attorney Raymond Oates was 60 years old, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and a former federal prosecutor who had spent the second half of his career as a civil rights attorney suing police departments across the South. He met with Marcus in a quiet office overlooking downtown Atlanta. Agent Bennett of the Federal Bureau of Investigation will handle the criminal prosecution. That's their jurisdiction. But there's also a civil case here against Hollister personally, against Millbrook County, and against a system that allowed this to happen 52 times before you came along. I'm not interested in money. I'm not talking about money for you. I'm talking about accountability, about making it so expensive to protect bad cops that counties can't afford to do it anymore. Oates leaned forward. Your car was worth $198,000. Your undercover career, conservatively valued at decades of federal service, has been compromised. Your father's memory has been violated. The damages are substantial. And if we win, donate every penny if you want. But first, make them pay it. Hit them where it actually hurts. Their budget, their insurance premiums, their political careers. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Do it. The press conference was held on a Tuesday morning. Sheriff Ronald Briggs stood at a podium bristling with microphones, looking like a man facing a firing squad. After a thorough internal review, Deputy Brad Hollister has been terminated for cause. His conduct, including the deliberate destruction of a citizen's vehicle, violated our department's values, our training, and the constitutional rights of an American citizen. This behavior will not be tolerated in Millbrook County. 8 years of complaints, 7 damaged vehicles, and 0 consequences until he wrecked the wrong man's car. 2 weeks later, the federal indictment came down. Former Deputy Brad Hollister has been indicted on federal civil rights charges, including deprivation of rights under color of law, destruction of property, falsifying federal records, and obstruction of justice. These charges carry a combined maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. Sergeant Patricia Vance was suspended without pay for 90 days and permanently demoted to patrol officer. Her supervisory failure, including signing off on 7 false accidental damage reports, was cited as enabling Hollister's pattern of abuse. She resigned 3 months later rather than face further investigation. The civil case moved faster than anyone expected. County lawyers knew they couldn't win. The video was too clear, the pattern too established, and the public outrage too intense. Millbrook County settled for $2,400,000. Marcus Bennett donated every cent. One portion went to a scholarship fund for black law enforcement officers, another to a wrongful conviction legal defense fund. The largest portion, $800,000, went to Linda Morrison's church renovation project. He never told her. She found out when the contractor showed her the anonymous donation receipt. The federal consent decree was signed 6 months after the incident. 5 years of mandatory federal oversight. New training requirements. Body camera policies with immediate termination for tampering. Mandatory documentation of any vehicle damage during traffic stops. A civilian review board with subpoena power. For the first time in Millbrook County's history, someone was watching the watchers. Deputy Kyle Messner testified fully against his former partner. He wasn't criminally charged. His cooperation had earned him that. Instead, he was reassigned to the training division, where he now teaches a course on intervention. How to stop a fellow officer from crossing the line. He calls it, "What I Should Have Done." The sentencing hearing was held on a cold morning in December. Brad Hollister stood before a federal judge in civilian clothes. His uniform was gone. His badge was gone. His swagger was gone. "Mr. Hollister, you have pleaded guilty to 1 count of deprivation of rights under color of law and 1 count of destruction of property. Do you understand the consequences of this plea?" His voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor. You are sentenced to 51 months in federal prison. You are ordered to pay $198,000 in restitution for the destroyed vehicle. You are permanently barred from employment in law enforcement in any jurisdiction in the United States. 51 months. 4 years and 3 months behind bars." Marcus Bennett donated the restitution too. He didn't attend the sentencing. He was working back in the field investigating public corruption. A new case. A new target. When a colleague asked why he'd skipped the hearing, Marcus shrugged. "The best revenge is doing your job well." Linda Morrison sat in the back row of the courtroom that day. She watched the man who had terrorized a stranger on a roadside get led away in handcuffs. She thought about pressing record on that afternoon 6 months ago. Sometimes courage is just pressing a button. 1 year later, Marcus Bennett pulled into a sports car dealership in Atlanta. A salesman approached, eyes bright with commission dreams. "Beautiful day, sir. Looking to upgrade?" Marcus looked at the cars. Red ones, black ones, silver ones. Each one worth more than most people make in 5 years. He thought about his father. The Sunday walks, the hand pressed against the glass. "No," he said quietly. "Just looking." He walked away. The insurance had paid out. The restitution had been donated. He could have afforded another sports car. He chose not to. Some things can't be replaced. Some dreams belong to a moment that's gone. He bought a Honda Accord instead. Silver, practical enough to get him to his mother's house on Sundays. That was enough. In his home office, Marcus placed a new photograph on his dresser. Not of the pristine sports car he'd once owned, but of the wreckage, the crumpled hood, the shattered grille, and the deep scratch running from headlight to taillight. Behind it, reflected in the remaining intact glass, was his father's face from the old photograph. He kept it there as a reminder, not of the hate, but of why the fight matters. Linda Morrison's church held a dedication ceremony for the new community hall. A small plaque hung by the entrance, restored through the generosity of a friend. She never learned who donated the money. She had her suspicions. Standing before her congregation, She smiled. Sometimes courage is just pressing record, and sometimes kindness comes from people you tried to help. I don't know who gave us this gift, but I know why. Because good people exist, even when bad things happen. Marcus Bennett was asked months later if he was still angry. He thought about it. I was. I still am. Sometimes. I lost my father's dream. I lost every dollar I'd saved. I lost the chance to work undercover again because my face is everywhere. He paused. But anger without purpose is just noise. I took what happened and made it mean something. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone should have to. That's why systems need to change. So it's not on individuals to be perfect, to be patient, to be lucky, to have a witness with a camera, or to happen to be a federal agent. His voice softened. Most people who go through what I went through don't get justice. They just get trauma. The system failed 52 times before me. I was 53. I was the lucky one. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't broken. He was something harder to describe. Transformed. Brad Hollister served 43 months of his 51-month sentence before early release. He is permanently barred from law enforcement. He still owes $198,000 in restitution. Millbrook County remains under federal oversight until 2029. Linda Morrison's video has been viewed 52 million times. Marcus Bennett still visits his mother every Sunday. He drives a Honda now, but sometimes late at night, he sits in his garage and looks at the empty space where the sports car used to be. And he remembers his father's words. Someday, son. Someday. Someday came. It just didn't end the way either of them expected. But maybe that's the point. Justice isn't about happy endings. It's about making sure the next person, the next black man pulled over for driving the wrong car in the wrong county, has a better chance than you did. Marcus Bennett didn't become a symbol because he wanted to. He became one because a man with a badge saw a car, saw a color, and decided he already knew the whole story. He was wrong. And now the whole world knows it. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, or just the need to think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Marcus's don't spread themselves. We spread them.